We now call this meeting to order. If you could please rise and pay attention to Councilwoman Hiller for the invocation, to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to introduce Chris Stewart to give our invocation this evening. Chris is the Executive Director of The Bridge, which is a mentoring program for Central Topeka youth. For those who remember the old Hogan hardware store, it said 8th and Clay in Central Topeka. He also is the current board chair of Habitat here in Topeka. He has lived in Topeka for 20 years and with his wife Angie and now 3 adult children. Thank you for our invocation.
Thank you. Ms. Mayor, council members, if you would join me in this exercise before I give the invocation. What are you thankful for about Topeka, Kansas? When you think of Topeka, Kansas, could you make a list of 10, 20, 100 things that you're thankful for? An invocation is the action of invoking someone in authority, asking for assistance. And as I interact with folks in our community, I experience a lot of people with anxiety, right? These are anxious times, lots going on. The Bible says that if you're anxious, then put the following recipe in a slow cooker. Prayer, specific requests for what you want or need, and then thanksgiving. Give thanks. And my experience has been that it works. If I'll slow down enough to pray, specifically ask for what I want or need, and then just make a list of things I'm thankful for, peace comes. God gives peace. So let me give the invocation. Will you pray with me? Father, we pray to you because you are the God of peace. You are just and righteous. You are high and exalted and yet near and attentive. You are good and loving. Would you please give us peace? Not just the absence of conflict. We might have some of that here tonight, but please the presence of flourishing goodness, of wholeness, of attentive listening. Please give us unity. Open the ears of our hearts to hear one another tonight and going forward. Give safety for our civil servants, and please liberty from oppression and tyranny and justice for all. Thank you for Topeka, Kansas, for beautiful Capitol grounds, for a downtown that is revitalizing, for parks, the Governor's Mansion, Gage Park, Shawnee Lake, the Shunga Trail. Thanks for faith communities and nonprofits and businesses who care and work and invest and love our community. Thank you. Thanks for teachers and school staff who are working so hard right now to adapt. Thank you, Father. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we move forward with the roll call, I want to let everybody know that our system that typically counts our votes is not functioning today. So as an exercise, we will resort back to the good old days of raising your hand for yay and raising your hand for nay. And if I forget that and I say, please proceed with your vote, just look at me kind of crazy, and I'll remember that we have to do that. We proceed with the roll call.
Mayor De La Isla.
Here.
Council members Hiller.
Here.
Valdivia Acala.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Emerson.
Here.
Padilla.
Here.
Nager. Here. Dobler.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
And Lesser.
Here.
We have 10 present.
All right, we now move on to the appointments that the clerk would read.
A is an advisory council appointment of Jeffrey Williams to the City of Topeka Americans with Disability Act ADA Advisory Council for a term ending July 31, 2022. B is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Angel Zimmerman to the Downtown Business Improvement District Advisory Board to fill a term ending October 31, 2022. C is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Larry Robbins to the Topeka Public Building Commission for a term ending July 31, 2024. D is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Clyde Schwank to the Topeka Sustainability Advisory Board for a term ending July 31, 2022. And E is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Casey Williams to the Topeka Sustainability Advisory Board for a term ending August 31, 2022.
We have heard the consent agenda, the appointments. What is the pleasure of the body? Councilwoman Nager makes a motion. It's been seconded by Deputy Mayor Emerson. Questions or discussions on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Mayor doesn't vote. All opposed, same sign.
So we have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the appointments pass. We now move on to the consent agenda, if the clerk would read.
A is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Spencer Duncan granting Christ the King Catholic Church an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at C concerning noise prohibitions. B is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Sylvia Ortiz granting Augusta Munoz an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Section 945-150 at C concerning noise prohibitions. C is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Chout allowing and approving city expenditures for the period of May 30 through June 26, 2020, and enumerating said expenditures therein. D are the minutes of the regular meeting of August 18, 2020, and the special meeting of August 25, 2020, and there are no applications.
We have heard the consent agenda. What is the pleasure of the body? We have a motion by Councilwoman Ortiz, a second by Councilman Padilla. Any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we proceed by voting. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign.
We have 10 yes.
10 having voted yes, the consent agenda passes. We now move on to the next item on the agenda, and this is public comment. First person signed up to speak in public comment is Ms. Rhonda Hubbard.
Good evening. I was coming because I had some personal issues as far as where I stayed. I stayed in a duplex with Topeka Housing Authority, and I have been reaching out to several people in the community and in the district that I live in, and I have been coming up with no, to me, I haven't been helped at all or the right direction to go. I'm on disability, and I was living in one of the Topeka, like I said, Topeka Housing Authority's duplexes. And as of July 24th, 2020, I was evicted. And I thought there was a moratorium. I've been trying to say it.
Moratorium.
Yeah, until it had ended in August, and then it was back up for the December 31st of this year. Well, anyway, it was not for me not paying my rent, but it was for because they was wanting to see my bank statements. And I was like, I'm on disability, and I got the letter that I was supposed to have, and but I had been complaining about the maintenance issues since December of last year. And I've called code enforcement, and I had sent a letter to the court saying, you know, I think they was going to retaliate against me. And the retaliation, I believe, was that eviction because I wasn't in favor of us showing my bank statements to them because I don't know them. And I was like, HUD didn't need that before. They said it was a HUD regulation. I was like, HUD didn't need it before, so I don't understand why they need it now. I was like, I wouldn't think HUD would change it in the middle of the pandemic, you know, to where I wouldn't have a home to stay at. And so that's where I am right now. I have a P.O. box and I don't have a home. And every place that I've tried to go to, they said Topeka Housing Authority own it or they are in affiliation with them. And I was told I need to go back to Topeka Housing Authority and try to rekindle our relationship. Well, I've tried to talk to the attorney, and I've called them several times, and I haven't got a phone call from either. I also sent a certified letter for my security deposit, I haven't got a response on that either. And so I was wanting to know where I can go to, who I can go to get this resolved, and so I can get a home to stay in. Because right now, like I said, I don't have a home to stay.
Ma'am, would you
Yes.
mind stepping aside after this meeting is done? And then we'll try to figure out how to connect you with city manager. I was under the understanding that you had received a connection with HUD. Was that not successful?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, so not even HUD was successful in helping.
No.
Okay. If you don't mind staying for a bit,
Okay,
we'll catch up.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next person signed up to speak is Jeff Romine.
Hi, she mentioned I'm Jeff Romine. I am licensed. Can you not hear me?
No, I said I'm sorry. I said it wrong.
Oh, no problem. It's been wrong my whole life. So. As I mentioned, I'm a professional engineer licensed to work in the state of Kansas. I was born and raised in the city of Topeka. I've been practicing here for the last 33 years, and I come before you based on information I received that the plumbing code, which was sent to you for approval, was amended last minute, and there was some question about its content. In addition to a consulting engineer, I've been involved with the Board of Plumbing Examiners for the city of Topeka since 1995. I presently am the chair of that board. And I'm not a licensed contractor. I'm not a licensed plumber. I'm a professional engineer. So the two major responsibilities for the Board of Plumbing Examiners or the Board of Appeal is to hear appeals once someone's been written a violation by a plumbing inspector. And then number two is to adopt a plumbing code or recommend that you adopt a plumbing code. There's two model plumbing codes in the United States. One of them is the international, one of them is the Uniform Plumbing Code. And the city of Topeka has adopted a Uniform Plumbing Code for several years. I only know about back to like in 1985. These two model codes are national standards, not something that we produce here in the city of Topeka. And the same two model codes that almost every jurisdiction in the state of Kansas, Missouri, across the United States adopt, one of the two. A group of excavation contractors attended our January 2020 Plumbing Board Appeals meeting to discuss this topic about who can install water lines and sewer lines. No one from the City Board of Appeals told them no, and that this was not an option. The Board of Appeals did explain that the new rules would need to be considered, and the board also asked the excavators to bring a sample ordinance from other jurisdictions that allow excavators to install water lines and sewer lines. To the best of my knowledge, nothing's been received by this developmental services or the Board of Plumbing Examiners. So as I understand the amendments to the ordinance, any licensed contractor in the city of Topeka can install a water line and a sewer line. Now, there is some more detail about testing and things like that. The amendment allows all licensed contractors to perform plumbing. Was it the city council's intent to allow roofers, landscape contractors, any contractor, an electrician, to install plumbing? I'm quite certain that a majority of the contractors licensed in the city of Topeka are not aware of the materials and methods included in the Uniform Plumbing Code as adopted by the city of Topeka. Was it the city council's intent to require materials and methods per the current city regulations, meaning the Uniform Plumbing Code, or are there other materials and methods which are acceptable? Oh, am I out
You
of
still
time
have 1
already?
minute. 1 minute.
You have a minute.
1 minute, okay. This is a potential issue because the city plumbing inspectors are only trained to inspect based on the materials and methods of the Uniform Plumbing Code. Also, this is definitely an issue because not all licensed contractors in the city of Topeka are familiar with the materials and methods required by the Uniform Plumbing Code. So, the amendment states that a licensed contractor shall install water services to an industrial or commercial building. Does this include backflow preventers for fire services connected to the city water main? Does it include backflow prevention and lawn irrigation systems connected to the city water main? is it acceptable for any contractor licensed in the city of Topeka to install any or all these systems? In a similar fashion, the amendment states a licensed contractor shall install sewer mains to an industrial commercial building. Does this include storm drainage? Does it include pump storm drainage? Sewer systems for buildings that often include sewage injectors, grinders, lift station, grease interceptors, solid interceptors. Should I quit?
Your time is done, yeah.
Okay. So I guess the overall understanding is what is acceptable to be installed by a contractor.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you for your comments. Would you like to?
Mr. Don't mind?
Yes, sir.
There's been some confusion.
Okay.
What you read was not what we adopted.
Okay.
It said, and I'm sorry, I'm doing this from memory now. It's basically any contractor licensed to install city utilities. So if you're already putting in like water mains and sewer for the city to city engineer specs,
Okay.
you can simply put the service line up to within a part of the building.
And do those specs comply with the city building regulations with respect to materials and
Yes, they do.
methods?
Yeah.
It does?
Yes.
Okay. I was of the understanding that utility contractors could run materials that are not in the plumbing code.
Sure, we probably can't. Let me talk to you afterwards, please.
Okay.
We probably shouldn't start a two-way
Okay.
thing during public comment.
Thank you.
so Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next person signed up to speak is Bruce Piper.
Okay, take this off? Yeah. Good. Okay, I'm here to address codes and ordinances that are affected by that ordinance that you guys adopted. But before I do that, I think it's important that the city council understands what is required to get and maintain a license to be an operating, or to install plumbing in the city of Topeka. The state of Kansas requires that an individual is an apprentice for 2 years prior to sitting for an exam that he has to pass in order to obtain a plumbing license. He also has to maintain that license by having 6 hours of CEUs yearly, in order to maintain those licenses. In order to become a master, he is required to work 2 more years as a journeyman, also take an exam by the state of Kansas, and then he also has to have the yearly CEUs. So I'm going to talk a little bit about plumbing systems. It says our plumbing, water services, and sewers part of the plumbing system. Section 218 of the Uniform Plumbing Code states that the building water supply and building sewers within the property lines are considered as part of the plumbing system, and per ordinance 5.63.030 must be installed by a duly licensed plumbing contractor. The new ordinance also states that a project must be designed by an engineer. Per code, Section 104.4.1.N2, engineered drawings are required on all large projects. The designs of the projects must meet or exceed the requirements found in the code and must be approved by the authority having jurisdiction. In this case, that's the city of Topeka. The newly adopted ordinances do not require the water services or sewers for commercial installations to meet code or be approved by the city of Topeka. Does not mention the approved materials in the ordinance. All materials used in plumbing systems are required by code to be tested to applicable standards and installed per adopted codes and ordinances. Does not mention inspections. Section 105.1 of the 2018 UPC requires that all plumbing systems require a permit shall be inspected and approved by the authority having jurisdiction. Even public utilities are inspected by the City of Topeka Engineering Department. It was said that the City of Topeka is more restrictive.
1 minute.
Okay. Concerning commercial industrial construction in other jurisdictions. Attached, I sent a little pamphlet to everybody In that was a chart that shows 10 jurisdictions. Out of the 10 jurisdictions, all but one require the same requirements that we do, that you have plumbing contractors, that they be licensed, that they get permits, and they have inspections. All but one. In conclusion, these ordinances create a double standard. They allow any licensed contractor to install or repair private, commercial, or industrial building water services and building sewers within the property lines without permits or inspections, while requiring licensed plumbing contractors to adhere to city codes and ordinances for work inside the building. It allows individuals with little or no training to install plumbing systems, while requiring licenses and CEU.
You can
Let me
wrap up,
finish.
you can wrap
Okay.
up.
And CEUs for the plumbing contractors and their employees. These ordinances permit the use of materials not approved by the city for private plumbing systems, while requiring plumbing contractors to install code-compliant fittings and pipe. They accept engineered systems that may not meet or exceed the requirements of the Uniform Plumbing Code and relevant city ordinances, and are not approved by the authority having jurisdiction. For these reasons, I respectfully ask the City Council to rescind the ordinances that allowed any contractor to install private building water service and sewers for commercial and industrial structures, and revert to the originally adopted 2018 Uniform Plumbing Code and associated ordinances that were submitted by the City of Topeka Plumbing Board. Thank you.
Sir. The next person signed up to speak is Mr. Ron Gish.
Ron Gish, and I'm in the 66604 zip code within this district. If I take off my mask.
Yes, sir.
I'm just basically, this Topeka Police Department policy is online. It's very transparent, I appreciate that. And I just wanted to go through it real quick. The 4.3 use of force reporting and review team. It says the policy for every reportable use of force of an officer should be reported accurately, completely, promptly, and every use of force shall be investigated thoroughly and with professionalism and impartiality to determine if the officer's actions conform to the law, complies with department policy, and is consistent with departmental training standards. So anytime we have a use of force, that's their policy. The officers would go out to the scene, they would call their supervisor if they're involved in a use of force, any one of these. If an officer actively points a firearm at someone, or they point a taser at someone to gain compliance, they would be calling the supervisor. If they use an intermediate weapon such as a PR-24, a baton, a pepper spray, a taser, impact munitions, or empty hand strikes, the supervisor goes. The supervisor investigates. What they would be doing there is they would look at the subject that was injured to determine what type of injuries they have and what type of medical needs they may have. The other thing they would do when they get there is make sure they would talk to the person, interview them. It would be recorded. The supervisor would interview all available witnesses that may have seen the incident occur. The supervisor is going to ensure all officers involved in the use of force are interviewed separately. Body-worn cameras, videos, or other recordings shall be reviewed by the supervisor for investigation purposes. Digitally recorded items will be linked to the reports, and then they're forwarded. They use, I think, Blue Team. But basically, they're going to look through the videos before they do that and make sure that all the evidence that's relevant, may evaluate that evidence to determine whether the use of force was consistent with department policy, suggest any policy training, tactical or equipment concerns. So there's a good reason the supervisor goes out. They collect all this information, and then what happens is the police department also has a review team. So once it goes through that chain of command and all the evaluation's done and everything's packed up and sent up through Blue Team, then they have the review team that's going to go through and look at it. The use of force is going to be analyzed. Here's what's important. I think you read it last week, City Manager. The use of force actions should be analyzed from the perspective of an objectively reasonable officer at the scene with due allowance for the fact that law enforcement officers are often forced to make split-second judgments in circumstances that are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving. They should be judged without the benefit of 20/20 hindsight, which means you can't go look at your camera to decide whether you should have shot or whether you should have used your taser, or whatever it might be. You have to make that decision on the spot. You don't get the chance to go back and second guess your own, I mean, you're going to, but you don't get the chance to go back and review that and undo your shooting, or whatever it might be that you've done. So all I'm saying is, before my message, I don't want my message to get lost, I'm against this oversight committee that's been discussed. And the reason I'm against it is because right here in Graham versus Connor, it's saying, from the perspective of an objectively reasonable officer at the scene. I'm not real sure how the civilians with no training are going to have that perspective of an officer with experience and training and time on the street, pushing a car down the street and being shot at and having all the things that happen. I don't think a civilian's going to have that perspective. So that's really what my goal of coming tonight. I think Graham versus Connor is what all the policy related to use of force for the police department is based on. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next person is Catherine Zoss.
Good evening. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Ms. Mayor, for letting me speak. My name is Catherine Zide. I go by Kasha. I came into Kansas from Colorado on April 27th. Was up in Mayetta for a job, supposedly, but because of the COVID, it was suspended, so I was homeless and jobless. I was robbed on May 19th in Mayetta and ended up down here. The only money I had left was a check for $104, so I went to Walmart and I bought a tent, a sleeping bag, some food, and a few supplies for my camp. And then I went to the Topeka Police Department to say, where could a person camp and not be in trouble with the city? They said you can go to the North Bridge on Kansas and sleep by the river, so I did. And I really like camping. I like being by the river. It's really beautiful. However, there's a lot of gang activity up there. There's a lot of traffickers up there, and there's a lot of drugs up there. The first time I stepped onto the access road, I was asked if I wanted to do meth, if I wanted a camp partner, if I was wearing underclothes, and a few other things. I won't go into everything they asked me. Anyways, face it, that the north of the bridge is a gladiator society. Would you agree with me? You have territories, you have this, you protect whatever you have. However, on the north side of the bridge, we have gladiator. Example, football. Yay, Chiefs, right? 50 years in the making. How many like that? Yes, it's very good, right? Yay. How about boxing? Joe Louis, Muhammad Ali, all these other people, right? Very good. Wrestling. The only person I can remember was Ric Flair. So that kind of dates me a little bit. I see you guys, okay, you guys know, okay. My favorite is MMA. I love the martial arts. You can kick, you can box, you can sweep, you can, surrender hold, whatever you want to do, and it's totally acceptable because it's entertainment. My problem was this. When it comes to a police action, it's unacceptable. Suspects that are arresting or resisting arrest, threatening other citizens, officers, first responders, a chokehold may not be feasible because it might harm somebody. Let's talk about integrity. I've heard that thrown around the town all the time since I've been here, integrity. Do you think if a suspect had integrity and said, yes, you caught me, I surrender, that they would have to take them down or anything? Or how about this? If the perpetrator had integrity, they wouldn't be doing the crime at all. How many agree with that? Sometimes we put our police officers to a degree of integrity that we ourselves would not hold. If you had a gun in your face, would you sit there and say, well, I'm sorry, I won't harm you, do what you want to do? I don't think so. Anyways, and before the council or anyone else votes about no chokehold, weapons in the trunk, or demilitarization, let's talk about that. I did an investigation. I received all the forensics. I never did publish my report because I was afraid over 20 years ago it would bring in what's going on in cities all over this country and across the country. One piece of evidence I want to bring up. 20 years ago, there's a police bulletproof vest with a hole through and through. To me, it's pretty bad when our police officers have to try to keep up with the Joneses to protect us. To me, that's not acceptable. Before anybody does anything it says police can't do. Let's do a ride-along with him, and you be the first one out of the car with no weapons and no tactics. Better yet, come and camp with me. Listen to the sirens every night, the people getting beat up, getting shot, getting raped, getting abducted, being threatened. I guarantee you that the people that are doing these crimes don't care whether they harm anybody or not. And maybe you'll get lucky. One night in my camp, I had a male come into my camp, tell me he was going to blow my face off and do a bunch of other things to me.
Ma'am, you need to wrap up your statements.
Okay.
Your time is done.
My statement, please do not put chokeholds and handcuffs on the men and women that protect you, your city, and your assets, and your family, and the ones that protect those that scrape up the carnage that is left because someone decided they wanted to be judge, jury, and executioner in our streets. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next person signed up to speak is Patrick Grogan.
I am probably the only one up here that's not nervous, or that is nervous, so bear with me. So first off, I want to just say I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'm grateful that we can have an open and honest conversation. My name is Patrick Grogan. I'm owner of a local small business called Pat Plumbing, Heating, and Air. And I'm here to address the two-sentence addendum that was added to the passage of the plumbing code book at the last city council meeting. This two-sentence addendum specifically addresses excavation contractors, was added to the agenda the same day it passed by one of the city council members who also owns an excavation company in Topeka. This addendum allows excavation contractors to repair or install gas, water, and sewer lines on private property on all commercial jobs, big and small, in the city of Topeka. This work previously was only allowed by a journeyman or a master licensed plumber with years of experience. This addendum was added on the same day of the meeting that was just to pass the plumbing code. This never allowed any of the general public any time to understand the full depth of these statements, nor object to them for other than those that were in the room that day. 3 of the council members did not even hear of this until 11:16 a.m. that morning. The city council passed the new code book and the addendum resolution with some not even completely understanding the depth of the impact of those 2 sentences that were added. Those 2 sentences effectively took away plumbers' livelihoods in the city of Topeka that do any commercial work. This allows excavation contractors who don't have a tiered licensing program such as an apprentice, a journeyman, a master's license, to install and repair gas, water, and sewer lines. We have specific sections of the code book that entail every minute detail of exactly how we are supposed to install these items for longevity and safety. The council members listened and trusted the information they were being told on short notice by one of their peers. Internal emails have facts that were skewed to assure minimal objections and that this was a cost-saving measure and it would benefit all parties involved. The council member who owns the excavation company even said in the email to his peers that he would not receive financial gain from the addendum passing, even though it completely opens up new opportunities for his excavation company all across the city that they would not have had unless it was passed. I even spoke to one council member that said they would never support something like that which would directly take away from the Topeka plumbers' livelihoods. I don't have any ill will to the city council, as they had thought the information they had was complete and unbiased. But when a Topeka city council member makes an addendum to benefit his own company, I think it's unethical and out of integrity with what he and the city council stands for. I am for Topeka. I was even one of the people that created the Topeka Positive Experience page. I love Topeka, and I want it to constantly get better and draw in new people and businesses. I am all for gaining efficiencies, fixing antiquated systems that the board member referenced to sell this idea to the rest of the council. But the passage of this legislation directly hurts every plumber and their family in the city of Topeka. I just ask that the addendum to the code book that was passed be rescinded immediately, be reviewed, or whatever it takes to temporarily suspend this, and that all the parties that are affected be allowed to have a voice before such legislation is passed.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
May I ask, thank you, Mayor. May I ask him a question?
Of course.
I'm sorry. Grogan?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Grogan, okay. I might have been one of those ones that pushed the button too quick, and I apologize for that because I think I needed to do more studying of the issue. So I would like to speak with you in the future if to discuss more in depth what it is, because my desire would never be to take away from especially, any kind of, are you all unionized?
I'm not. There's others that are here that are, but it hurts us all alike.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
And I understand that. Well, in some ways, the way my stance on unions, it does matter. But for you all, for your livelihood and me not having a full understanding, I take responsibility for that. And so if it's
Well, thank
okay, I would like to contact you later. I see your phone number here.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are concluded with the public comments. We now move on to the announcements. The clerk?
Okay, the September 8th preliminary agenda. We have one presentation. It's the 2020 U.S. Census action items. The first action item, A, the WPC labor agreement has been moved to the September 15th agenda for action. On September 8th, an executive session will be conducted to discuss the matter. And then there'll be an ordinance for the utility bill, real estate liens for 2020.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The only announcement I have tonight is really, it's a thank you. On Friday, Jason Peak will have his last day, and I want to thank Jason for all of the work that he has done for our city and the various policies and programs that he has instituted in his time that he's had here. And so I just wanted to thank Jason for that work and wish him well in the future.
Thank you much. First, I wanted to start with something very positive, and it is that if you have not had the opportunity to go to Case Garden, please do so. It is an absolute gem in our city of Topeka. General Counsel Osaka from Japan, who resides in Chicago, was here. And when we had an opportunity to ask him how many gardens of this magnitude and with the elaborate design that it had exist in the United States, he said that there really was a handful. Maybe we were one of 4 gardens across the United States that had the level of depth and honoring of the Japanese culture. He was very proud. And I had the great opportunity to speak with him after and talk about, business development and encouraging people to come to Topeka. But it was a beautiful, beautiful garden. And I do want to, again, not only thank Brendan, but just posthumously just say thank you to Chief Justice Kay McFarland for her legacy in our community. And in addition to that, for Elaine and Howard Short, who were instrumental in making sure that this gem is in our community. It could have been anywhere else. And as you walk in the garden, and you have the benefit, like Mike and I had, of walking alongside Brendan, he would explain to you all the little things and the symbolisms in the garden. And a lot of the things, some of the decorations were from Chief Justice's house. So it was just really nice to be able to just see that she is alive and well in our community, and that her legacy of just being amazing is going to remain in our community for years to come. And it will outlive us. So that was pretty awesome. So then I am going to follow into some remarks that I seldom prepare remarks, as you all know. But I think that we're in a place and time in which I have to acknowledge remarks. Write some things down. So I will start by saying that promptly after the meeting last week, I did receive some correspondence from individuals from the body that were excited and wanted to make sure that we did something after the meeting last week. And I read messages and I had to pause, because what I thought that happened in our community on Tuesday was a lot of people from both sides came to us to let us know their feelings on a significant issue that we know that nationally there's things happening, locally there's been things that people are reporting to us. And even though as a community for the last 2 years, almost 3, we have been embarking in a journey of making sure that we continue improving on our relationships with the police department in our community, there is still conversation happening. So much so that it filled up close to 4 hours of public comment. And although it would be very easy to say that we are going to take one direction or another, I felt that it was probably the best thing to honor the two sides of individuals that came to our community and talked to us. We owe our community and each other, because I think that there was a lot of information that was passed on, a lot of information. I left, and I'll be the first one to admit that I got in my car and I cried my way home. I did. And if anybody that was sitting here did not leave broken by listening to everything that we heard, man, there was some deep stuff that was shared. So on top of that, as I am trying to figure out how to provide for the council a way for us to have some time to digest all the information that we have received, I'm sure that everybody is aware of what happened yesterday. I, at some point in time in my office, open up my Facebook account, and all of a sudden I see pictures that cause me pause. And immediately I call city manager, and I said, city manager, what's going on? Please, let's look into this. Received an email from a gentleman. I told him, hey, I just want to let you know, looking into this, and I'm working with the chief. And I think that it just goes to bring to the fact that there's a reason that we're having these conversations in our community. And I think and I encourage that all conversation is positive and healthy, especially when we have the ability to say that we acknowledge that we have an amazing police department and great police officers, but there's always a place to improve. A great place for improvement, I think, would have been for me not to find out, or the city manager, that this was occurring via Facebook. And I know that there's a process that has to be taken. So I am going to ask, and Gretchen, I want to thank you because you were really prompt in making sure that you sent out a document about the process. But I think there's a few things that I would like to say, and one of them is going to be extremely personal, because I think that everybody is aware of how much these issues are being politicized because of what I'm doing outside of this hall. Let's call a spade a spade. And these are serious issues that I take very seriously. But I will not allow what I'm doing outside of these chambers to be a reason for the things that are happening in our community to be politicized on either side. And in a time like this, I will say the following things. I would love for us to be able to have a full account of the process. I think that the currency of the community right now is transparency. And I think that the community and everybody needs to understand what the process is so that this video is released as soon as possible. The other thing that I wanted to say is I want to make sure that the community knows that after talking to the city manager, the independent police auditor will do a report. And then I think that as I was trying to figure out if there would be a course of action that I would call for at this time, it would be for me to call on our deputy mayor because I want to be, at least in this regard, to the side, to call for a committee that would include council members that are interested in continuing these conversations, to bring back everything that we have heard from our community, and hopefully as well invite members of our community to have conversations with this committee after listening everything that was said to us for 4 hours, because it was a lot of information. And then this committee can come back and talk to the city council with regards to what are the things that as a council body we can talk about. And I know that this is probably not what maybe people would expect, but I think that at this point in time, for us to make any determination without following a process, without honoring the fact that we had 4 hours of individuals talking to us in our community, and I know that there's a lot of information that we have to sift to, and this is why I am going to ask the deputy mayor to have a committee established. I would ask the council members that are interested to please talk to the deputy mayor, so that you could start working on starting this committee, and then you guys then start working on, first of all, understanding everything that we heard from our community on both sides, and then start figuring out then what are the recommendations that this team is going to bring to the body. And with that, Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for those kind of wrap-up comments. I think we've all been living with this so much. It wasn't just the 4 hours last week, but we've all had hundreds of emails from people who are championing change, people who are particularly concerned about being heard in terms of the way their experiences have been in the minority community, and the need to have those acknowledged and addressed in an appropriate way, as well as certainly champions of the police department. For me, I want to thank everyone who has sent comments and everyone who spent the time coming last week. It was rich. I also want to apologize to the people I haven't responded to personally yet, because I try to do them one at a time, and it's been overwhelming. It's literally been overwhelming. I have over 2,000 emails in my inbox right now, and it's just like, how could this be? Yet I do, some things that I've sifted out are that to the person, everyone supports the police. They support having police, and they support our police department. And for me, in terms of moving forward, that's really important to begin to see where people come together. People have positive feelings about our police department, and also recognizing that what our department was doing already in terms of the Champions for Change, what our department was doing already in terms of its partnerships and services in the community, as well as reaching out and creating things like SPCP and the Chiefs Advisory Committee, were intended to affirmatively reach out to the community as people have been asking that happen. And so I look at those pieces, and I also look at the fact that we're running a city and a police department that's trying to fill a recruit academy, that's trying to hire overall, a city government that's wanting to have a diverse workforce, and a community that's proud of its diversity and inclusion and wanting to always do better. I personally think I've heard enough. I appreciate what you said. I think that we should, as a council, I think we're ready to try and pull those pieces together and look at those commonalities and kind of sift the issues that have been raised down into maybe some groups and so on, and see if we can't settle some things. And I do appreciate that if you think about it, when things all kind of blew up, citizens and council members and the chief and the union, the FOP, were working together to have conversations and settle on what might be the best for us. And I hope we can continue at that level because I think it will be the best for everyone. And again, I keep reminding myself and want to remind everyone that we all support the police and we also support the diversity and want to honor the diversity and the integrity of everybody in our community as well as in our department. So I'm in and I'm happy to contribute and thank you for suggesting that we move forward.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I would like to say, like, what I'm going to say, I just want it to be made very evident that I'm coming from a lens, a perspective of a woman of color. And if y'all don't know what that means, I really, maybe just look it up because I'm not going to explain it. But two things. First thing, I'll be reaching out to legal this week to start crafting an ordinance establishing a citizens review board. I want to give a big and sincere and heartfelt thank you to Mainstream Incorporated, NAACP Kansas chapter, and the multitude of others for creating an initial vision of said ordinance. And so my goal, again, is to start that this week. The rest of this is basically for the city manager. Once again, I and perhaps others on council were caught unaware of an important situation that took place in our city. As in previous instances, your directives change on a dime, which to me reflects overwhelm and secrecy. You stated yesterday most likely there would be no executive sessions until after the first of the year. How can you in good conscience even try to keep that from happening? Stating it was because of Zoom, which has not been a reason to stop us from having executive sessions before, has not been an issue. After this late morning email, you finally sent an email to the governing body about alleged police misconduct. That alleged misconduct occurred on August 23rd, over 9 days ago, towards a citizen of color by a TPD officer. At a time our city was preparing for a special session on police reform, when calls for justice were often being met with hate. Who knew of this, yet kept silent? Then, after this email, once again, you reverse course and say we must have an executive session. A couple of hours later, I receive a call confirming an executive session. Confusion, uncertainty, and poor leadership as our city struggles. In this same email this morning, you, and I'm paraphrasing, stated you found out about the alleged police excessive force incident yesterday on Facebook. City manager, if this is the way you receive serious information about serious allegations on police misconduct by an officer against a black woman, then I ask, what is going on here? Why does this all feel like it does not add up? It sounds like you, city manager, the chief, perhaps even the mayor, are all pointing fingers subtly or not so subtly at each other. Who now will get thrown under the bus to avoid transparency, responsibility, and accountability to the people? City manager, the lack of transparency to me, towards me, a duly elected public official, smacks of insubordination. This lack of communication with the governing body, I sense, may also be happening to other council folks. With all this said, city manager, I will be lodging 2 complaints tomorrow with the Internal Association of City Managers. I will pass this on to the city clerk to put on file. No 5 votes are needed to do this. Deputy Mayor, I will be filing the same 2 complaints with you so that they can be on file when we discuss renegotiations of city manager contract next month. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. I had some questions. I called legal. I wanted to follow up with legal. That I had some questions as well. Because some people said it happened yesterday, some people said it happened last week, and just some concerns that I have as an elected official. I too was rather upset that our city is divided. And I don't know how we can, Mayor, come to the table. I just don't understand how we can come to the table in a manner that we can all sit down and talk. This is a perfect opportunity for us to come together and sit down at the table and talk. But when we have people that are, emotions are flying, and they're raging out, they're cussing at each other, they're doing all these things, how can we collectively sit down and talk? I look at this and I want to see how, or if anything needs to be changed. And it's evident that there is some things that might need to be changed or need to be changed. And, you know, people are screaming for things that we can't even do. It needs to go on a state level. And they're still pushing. I'm still getting emails. Karen, I got about 3,000 emails.
You can have them.
Shit, my thing is saying I'm overloaded, so I'm gonna have to get with staff. And so I really don't want to move fast. I want to move slow so that we understand what we're doing here. You know, people are saying defund. I'm still getting don't defund the police. Defund and reform is two different things. And do we all understand the definition of it? And those are my things. I think we're moving too, I'm not gonna move on anybody's emotion. I'm not gonna do that. The judicial system will take care of what it needs to take care of in time. But this is a perfect opportunity that we all sit down and we all learn together and we all research it. Not go by somebody who has researched it and then grab their information and say, oh, that sounds good. We need to hear it for ourselves if we're going to make these changes. We need to hear it for ourselves. We need to study it for ourselves. We need to ask questions because right now we're not all on the same page. And I don't know if we'll ever be on the same page. We can set all the ordinances, we can set all the policies, we can do all those things. But till we change the hearts of the people, nothing will change. Nothing will change. This has been going on for years. Is it time to change? Yes, it is time to change. And what I hear is, I'm not going to be involved in all that chaos. That's what I hear. They want to come forward, they want to present forward, but they're not going to because they don't want to be a part of a bunch of chaos. And people come before us, it's happened on both sides, they come before us and they're this perfect person in front of us for the cameras. Then they get on Facebook and they're fighting. I looked at the SPC meeting on September, or excuse me, wait a minute, August, because we're not there yet. I just had a birthday, so I'm August. I looked at that, the 12th, and I couldn't believe it. It was rude, and I'm not saying one side or the other. There was rudeness. There was staff arguing with people. It was terrible. It was terrible. There was people trying to overtalk. Now we got all these people that they're advocates and they got so much to say. So I just want to say, I want to make sure before anything is passed that we're able to pass that. I don't want to sit here and spend a whole bunch of time on it if we can't do that. We can run a resolution and support all day long. But if it's at the state level or the federal level, I know there was something that I read, I don't have my book, I apologize, it said they wanted subpoena power. We can't do that. That has to come from the Supreme Court. So I'm not going to sit here and give people false hope of what we can do. I'm not going to do. Do we have bad officers? We do. I'm sorry, we do. Do we have good officers? We do. Just like in anything else, there's good and bad. Hopefully, we got to get the head right. And if the head's not right, that includes us, then the tail will never be right. And we're going to have all this chaos, continued chaos. So I hope what we can do is take it slowly. I hope what we can do is get legal involved. And not just Lisa, but get other involved. I hope we can look at cities that have put together committee review and their process, because it wasn't 2 weeks and here it is. It wasn't that. It took time to put a committee review board together. But we need both people sitting at the table so that we can do that. I'm proud of our city for what we do have. I was looking at cities, they don't even have body cams. I thank God for our body cams. And I thank God that we're able to release them. And so there's a lot of things we're doing right, there's a lot of things that need to be tweaked, and there's a lot of things that need change. And I hope we can come together. And I don't care what you say about me on Facebook. I don't care. If you can't come to me, that's just a coward out there. I don't care. I don't care. I really don't. Because you just get tired. And that's where I'm at. Because I too am a woman of color. I'm Mexican American. I too am a Mexican. And I too have been wronged. But at the end of the day, I love everybody. Whites, blacks, blue, greens, or whoever. I don't have to explain to anybody. I don't have to play the race card. I just have to give an account to Sylvia Ortiz at night when I'm through for the end of the day. That's what I have to do. So I don't care what they say. They can go out there. I'm glad they got my name in their mouth. That means I'm bothering somebody out there. So you know what? I just hope they spell my name right. And last but not least, I want to say happy birthday to my buddy who is 90 years old, and he lives in Hannah's district. His name is Raul Gomez. And he is an awesome gentleman, and I just want to say happy birthday and many more. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor?
Well, I kind of hate to follow that at all. That's some very heartfelt comments. Actually, let me try to just change the mood a little bit. The Capital Journal reported the good news of the day was that Shawnee Heights was going back in school in person, at least half. So one of my sons went back today, and it was glorious in the house. My wife, who works out there at the high school, says it's just a sense of normalcy again in our community. And man, what a great thing to see kids back in school. And I know you can't do that everywhere, and I'm not criticizing remote learning, but it's great seeing life, some semblance of normal coming back into our lives. So that's it. Good night.
Councilman Padilla?
I'll follow up a little bit with Tony and trying to start off with a lighter touch. I agree with you. Kay's Garden, everybody has to take some time to go see that. And if you get the chance to have Brendan give you the guided tour to explain all the detail that you probably won't be aware of unless he explains it to you. And he explained even the flat stones that you walk on are at a certain distance, and they're designed that way to make you slow down, to make you take time to look at the garden. And just those kinds of details, if he can share those with you, I think it will bring a lot of understanding of what it took to bring this to Topeka. I also want to say that today I took part in the first day of the GVI University training that's part of the SAVE program that we're still working on. Tomorrow's the second day. I'm encouraged by what I heard. I'm looking forward to the opportunity for us to finally identify a program manager and start to move forward on that and start to implement some things, because I think this is timed perfectly for the community. There's a lot of data to take in, but more than that, like my colleague Ortiz talks about, it's all about the hearts of the people who accept this and put it into place. No program is designed in a way that would make us do what we know what we should do. We just decide that on our own. If you're of a good heart, you will do it. And so I hope that we can continue to move forward in that. And I thank Chief Cochran for that, for being a part of that initial effort to bring that to this community. I think it shows how he has been progressive and forward-moving in trying to engage the community as he listens to them. Some people might complain that he doesn't say enough. Sometimes you learn a lot more by just being quiet and listen. And the other thing that he's looking at, I don't know yet, is the chief still here or did he sneak in? If in fact, I know he has plans for this EPIC program. And again, ethical policing is courageous. The big key there is courageous, because the program itself won't work unless the officers have the heart to put that into place. And I believe the officers of the Topeka Police Department do have that heart. And I think that, again, that shows that we're not sitting on our laurels, or at least this city isn't, and waiting for all these recommendations to come our way before we take any action. We have leaders in this community that are already doing that and moving forward. So I appreciate that. And for those who support the department in those efforts, I do hope that, like, again, Councilwoman Ortiz kind of took some of my thunder, but it's true. You know, there's a lot being said on Facebook. People who I thought were my friends from the police department have shown me their true character. They've come out and shown me who they really are. But that's who they are, and I can't do anything about it. But I do have some real good friends who have given me support as well as we work our way through this. And so for that, I'm very appreciative. And so I know that none of us in these seats, no matter what we say or promise, can please anybody and everybody. It's just not going to happen. When you try to do that, you displease everyone else. So I want to caution anybody for trying to split us as a body. And that's the thing I'm seeing right now. I'm seeing this governing body being tested. Not just the police department. I'm seeing this governing body being tested as whether or not we are committed to what our responsibility is and whether or not we're being respectful enough to each other and putting our egos aside so that we can do not what's the right thing, but do what's right, period. And I hope that we continue to work as a body in unison to bring issues to this body in a respectful way so that everyone gets heard. No, this is not, as many people are trying to make it, a political issue, a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a Topeka issue, period. And that's why I've spoken before that I don't accept and don't encourage people to send me messages that are based on national origin and national programs. I really don't care about the national programs in Portland or anywhere else. I'm concerned about Topeka, Kansas. This is where I live, and this is where my responsibility lies. So I ask everyone to continue to work hard, because I know this body does. Continue to stay cohesive, be respectful of each other. Let's not start dissolving our resolve from within. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before last week's meeting, we were all offered the opportunity to go to the K. McFarland Japanese Garden for the ribbon cutting on last Thursday. And I couldn't go because I had to look at people's mouths. And so I reached out. Yeah, it's great. Do I need to be louder?
There you go.
All right. Thanks. But I did reach out to Mr. Wiley to say I would love to see the garden. My mom is chomping at the bit. Can she come with me? And when I got to the garden, I was so agitated because of all of the things we've been talking about, because of the misinformation not being spread on Facebook and through the media, because of the national spin put on organizations in Topeka that have been here for decades trying to do good work, whether it's working on behalf of minorities or working on behalf of the police, and that being spun into something that it wasn't. And I was not ready to be peaceful. I was not ready to accept beauty. I just was so angry. And we walked into the garden, and it was gorgeous, and it was nice and quiet. And it was not until we walked in through backwards, and at the beginning of the garden, which is all set up so you have to go through this certain way and see certain parts of the garden revealed to you at points. It wasn't until we got to the beginning of the garden and we met this man who had a mask on and a sweaty t-shirt and jeans and a work hat and work boots. And Brendan introduced us to the Japanese garden master, Koji Morimoto. And this man, I don't know if you guys believe in God, but God spoke through Koji. He was talking about how you have to be courageous enough and realize that it is good to be content, that it is good to be grateful, and that you really need to appreciate that you can only take in a certain amount of information and human experience at a time, and that the rest will come and the rest will flow. And I had a therapy session later that day and I didn't need it. Oh my gosh, you guys, this man is inspired. And it was exactly what I needed to hear, because it just gave me so much freedom to build upon what Councilwoman Marti said. We need to show that compassion and empathy. We need to come to the table, and we need to stop talking so much. We need to quiet ourselves and listen. We need to get off Facebook and actually have discussions. We need to stop spreading edits of videos and thinking that we have the entire story. It takes us a while to get through these emails. Reach out to us still. Please seek out the truth. That was the main thing I reached out to people whenever they emailed me, because we are not looking to defund the police. We are looking to create a good partnership between our police department and our citizens so that we all can be safer. Because we don't want to have the discussions talking about what if. We want to do everything we can do to prevent it. As a doctor, that's my job. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And those are the things that we need to be focusing on. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. Is that apple a day thing? Kind of like that? Okay. Wasn't sure. I want to talk about something really serious here. I want to say thanks to utilities for the great water bottle. Thank you very much.
Councilman Duncan, you can't follow that one.
I'll keep it simple, Madam Mayor. If she's amenable to it, and excluding the women of color portion of her talk, I will just let Councilmember Ortiz be a voice for me this evening and thank her for her comments. Thank you very much.
Councilman Lesser.
I think I'll do that too.
And if you ever want to be a woman of color, just let me know. Before we go to executive session, because I think that it bars clarification, because I know that it will not be said, I will want to say that I called the executive session tonight. I asked the city manager to do it because I felt like the body needed to be updated. So with that said, City Attorney, could you please read the parameters?
The motion is to recess into executive session for a period of time not to exceed 30 minutes to consult with the city's legal counsel to discuss attorney-client privilege matters related to potential litigation as justified by KSA 75-4319B2. In order to aid the discussion, the following individuals should be present: members of the governing body, City Manager Brent Trout, Police Chief Bill Cochran, and myself. No action is anticipated to be taken when the open meeting resumes in the governing body chambers.
Okay, we heard the motion. Anybody in favor? Okay, all right. So everybody's in favor, so it's a motion. Somebody has the motion, Deputy Mayor, and I looked over here first, so I'll just go Dobler. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Yes, sir.
Sorry, you guys sort of still, in regards to the executive session, when we make the comment that no action is expected, I'm not saying there is. It doesn't preclude us from taking action if we do come out of executive session and decide some action needs to be taken?
Actually, it would. If
Okay, I mean,
if you come out, we would not be taking action. That just means that the folks can depart, and if they want to stay, yeah, they don't have to worry about staying. If we anticipate action's going to be taken, we probably need to state that action's going to be taken.
I'm not, I guess I would say, I'm not sure we know either way, right? So that's all, I just wanted to ask, thought it was important to ask that question.
30 minutes. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay, so we have motion and a second by Dobler. Deputy Mayor made the motion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Okay,
I saw 7 hands.
7 hands, all right?
I'm a yes.
Yes, so 8.
So no, I'm not sure I have an answer to my question. Do we need to remove that statement? Do I need to make an amendment? Can we just, I mean, I just don't want to box ourselves in. And again, I have no expectation either way, but I certainly don't want us to put it voted on.
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
So do we want to vote again?
You want to vote again? Okay,
Eight
so.
yes and 2 no then?
Well, if I may, I'm not trying to stall here. I want Councilman Duncan to feel comfortable with the answer and what he's going to move, what he's going to vote on. He still seems like he's a bit unsure, and I don't want to rush into anything that he's not comfortable with.
No, I appreciate that. I understand the answer. I'm not sure I like it, but that's okay, I guess.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
So,
Just want to make sure.
but if we think a decision needs to be made, I just want to be on record and say we probably should have left that door open.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so we now recess into executive session.
It is, yes. Thank you.
We have not concluded the discussion. We are in need of resuming this session for a time not to exceed 10 more minutes. Do we have a motion to extend? Councilwoman Hiller makes the motion. We have a second by Councilman Padilla. Okay, all of those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. We go back into executive session. Not to exceed the same parameters.
Yeah, this is what I was gonna say, there's a box, if you wanted